And we kick off this evening with a look at the cinema.
I'm not a complicated man. I like cinema.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
Cinema history come to life.
I found my solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Pace and Johnson
with a cinema review.
It is Monday, April 29th, 8 EST, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Cinemaster's Reviews. Took last week off, didn't see as many movies as I was hoping, was a little busy, but really excited to be back this week. Got two exciting movies we're going to be talking about. We are going to be reviewing Challengers, directed by Luca Guadagnino, as well as Boy Kills World, directed by, I have the director right here, if my notes would load, directed by Moritz Moore. I say we jump right into the show because I got a lot of things to say about both these movies. And the first movie we are reviewing tonight is Challengers, directed by Luca Guadagnino, most famous for movies such as Call Me By Your Name, the remake of Suspiria, Bones and All. Pretty well-established director at this point. This movie stars Zendaya as tennis superstar Tashi Duncan. She is starting to become the next big thing, and there are two up-and-coming tennis players that are her male peers. Two male peers take a liking to her both as a tennis player and also as a person. Those are childhood friends played by Mike Feist and Josh O'Connor. That would be Patrick Swayze and Art Donaldson. Flash forward in the future, this movie takes place 13 years after these characters have met, and we are now seeing a tennis match between Art and Patrick. Many things have happened in these characters' lives. Tashi dated Patrick, is now married to Art. There might be some tumultuous things going on with their marriage. Who knows? Going into this movie that was supposed to come out last year, got pushed due to the writer's strike because they wanted the actors to promote it. I was pretty intrigued by the trailers. I'm someone who really does enjoy Luca Guadagnino. He's not one of those directors I would call my favorite, but he's definitely one that I've enjoyed his films quite a bit. And I was pretty intrigued going to this movie, and I gotta say, as someone who's only seen Call Me By Your Name and Bones and All, those are both movies I really, really enjoy. I like this movie more than those, so I would say this is my favorite Luca Guadagnino movie. And I think the best thing I can say about this movie, and this kind of gives away how I feel about it, it's one of those rare movies that for me seems to just have everything working in its favor. Every aspect of this movie just feels quality. The direction is outstanding. The chemistry between all three lead actors is phenomenal. The dynamic between the characters is really intriguing and really three-dimensional. The editing, the way how this movie looks, it just feels snappy and just feels well-paced. The score, I will get to the score, but Chef's Kiss by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. There are so many places I want to start, but I think I just got to give a shout out to Luca Guadagnino as the director, because this is one of the best, most complete and well-directed movies I've seen this year. And I think just how he packages everything up to make this feel like such a full package of a movie and it's also an original story. So I want to give credit there that it's a really great original sports movie. But the sports is oftentimes when you hear people talk about certain sports movies, they'll have a caveat oh, but the sports is my least favorite part of it. No, the actual tennis playing you see in this movie is so interesting and intriguing, and how that works. Okay, there's so many ways, so many things I want to talk about this movie. Let's talk about all three lead actors: Zendaya, Mike Feist, and Josh O'Connor. I think all three of them play their characters so well. Zendaya is obviously all over the marketing of this movie, all over the poster. The poster is literally her looking at a tennis match with her sunglasses. The second you hear about this character, Tashi Duncan, you hear it from Josh O'Connor's Patrick, and he's saying she makes the game of tennis look like something different. She's super beautiful, super hot, and the second we see her, everything is just completely captured in just without Zendaya saying a single line. And the way how she just radiates confidence in this role, how every single thing, every time she interacts with either Patrick or Art, you can very clearly tell that she has ulterior motives, that she's doing this in a way because she wants to challenge them in a way, because she wants to bring out the best in them. She's someone that is super competitive, super super hyper focused, and I think Zendaya does such a really phenomenal job at playing this character. Mike Feist, Art, of the two friends, we're introduced. Art is kind of the more like subdued character between Art and Patrick. Like when we're first introduced to these characters, we see that Art has been married to Tashi for quite a while. We see Patrick; he's like living between homes because like he needs the money to win this tournament. So he's sort of like down in his luck. We kind of saw that Patrick was a little bit more of like a player when he was in college. A little bit more of a guy that dated around. Art was a little bit more quiet, even though they both did fall in love with this girl. But I think Mike Feist does a really good job at playing someone that, while he seems subdued and while he seems quiet, he definitely wants something, and you can very clearly see the inner drive in him. And while he's not like as open as someone like Patrick, he's definitely just as motivated. And I think Mike Feist does a really good job at playing that, at capturing those small moments. Mike Feist, probably most people know him from the remake of West Side Story. I think he was excellent as Riff. I think he's really, really great here, and I want to see more movies with him. But for me, if you were to ask me who is my favorite performance in this movie, I think it's Josh O'Connor. With all due respect to maybe as fun as the character of Tashi does seem to play, I think Patrick is probably the most fun to play, because of all the characters in this movie, he's the only one that I think recognizes his flaws and sees how like damaged and like broken of a person he is. He really like the second he sees Tashi, he really just wants to sleep with her. He always just views Art as kind of like a joke, because as we set up in the movie, Patrick was always kind of like the better tennis player, and they played years before, and Patrick won. That's why Tashi ended up dating him. And so going to this tournament, Art has something to prove, to be like, can I beat my former friend? Can I beat my now rival? And I think Josh O'Connor does a great job at playing these like really angry moments, like as the game starts going back and forth. Like at first Patrick has the upper hand, but then Art starts getting the upper hand at points. And when Patrick just starts like banging the racket, or when like when he finally sees that Art is doing like sort of like scummy things going behind his friend's back, I think that's really, really great. Josh O'Connor is really great at playing like this cocky douchebag role. And I was not someone who watched The Crown. I heard Josh O'Connor was very good on The Crown. And watching this movie, I really hope that more directors use him, because I think he can be used in a very, very great way as this like cockier character. I don't want to say he's like the bad guy of this movie, because I don't think there's really a good guy or a bad guy, because I think one of the genius parts of this movie is that Tashi, Art, and Patrick are such flawed individuals. I think Patrick is the character that most people would probably see as the villain of the movie, just because he's so open with he doesn't hide his flaws. He's someone that even when Tashi marries Art, is still trying to go after Tashi. And just the way how he just goes behind his friend's back is just really like it just makes the movie more interesting and just more fun to watch in a way. But as the more I think about the movie, I also see how Art absolutely went behind his friend's back, where like Patrick was the one who dated Tashi first, and Art just waited for his moment to finally just swoop in and sweep Tashi off her feet. The character of Tashi, if you've seen the trailers, you know something happens that sort of like stilts her career, and she becomes the coach of Art as he goes in through this tournament. And you can very clearly tell how the fact that she can no longer compete, and how she's trying to live her life through Art, is affecting him, and how he's starting to feel worn down. The way how this movie takes the dynamic of all three characters, and how all the relationships keep bouncing back and forth. Like there's going to be a lot of like, if you read any reviews about this movie, if you've heard anything about this movie, the fact that they are tennis players, the fact that this movie is about tennis, it makes sense when you see the dynamic of these characters, because oftentimes like there will be scenes where the characters are arguing and it's just back and forth, one line after another as they just keep on trying to like one up each other, and it feels like you're watching like you're watching a game of like dialogue tennis, and it's so much fun to see because the writing is so good, and the direction is so good as well. But as great as the as the dialogue scenes are, as great as those are, like the actual tennis scenes, like this is some of the most like well shot and well directed I've seen like sports scenes in a movie in a long time. Like maybe since like the first Creed was the last time I saw sports scenes this thrilling. There are often times where like you'll see first person shots of the characters as they're hitting the ball. At certain points we literally go into like a first person view of the ball, and it just really puts you on the court, and it's just back and forth. Like every time we cut to the audience, they're just going left to right. It's so much fun watching this movie, and the way how Luca directs these scenes is excellent. One of the absolute best technical elements of this movie is the score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Probably most famous, Trent Reznor being the frontman for Nine Inch Nails. He's been composing movies. I'm not sure if it was first one. Obviously won the Oscar for composing the score to The Social Network. They also won an Oscar for composing Soul. This is maybe my favorite score by them. I'm not sure I love the score to The Social Network, but the score to this movie, how it just takes like this like techno like upbeats and just makes it like super like digitized, and always like takes like it can literally just be a still shot of an actor, but this score is underneath it and it just makes it feel so much more intense and so much more upbeat, and just this movie has so much energy, and I think the score really captures that. And I think that's something that Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did a really good job of underscoring how great this movie feels, and how it leaves you with an electric feeling as you are listening to it, and that cannot be understated with how good the music of this movie is. Yeah, the movie looks beautiful, like not just the scenes on the tennis court, but like whether you're in a hotel room, whether you're on a college campus, like every single shot just feels like it's just you can see this movie, I believe, had like a $50 million budget, and you can see where the money was going, because this movie definitely has a look to it that looks very unique and looks very like high class, and very like the colors are very vibrant. I'm saying very way too much. Colors are extremely vibrant, and it just leaves you with like the movie just seems to be popping off the screen at points, and it really just affects your senses in a really fun way. Another element I wanted to tackle in this movie is this movie does use a very non-linear storytelling structure. Obviously, when we start the movie, we start at the big tennis tournament or the finals of the tennis tournament that Patrick and Art are playing in. Then we cut back and we see like the day before the tournament and how their like mental health is kind of like deteriorating a little. Then we go back like 13 years later and we see how these characters used to be friends, then meeting Tashi the first time they were in the hotel room, and they just ended up all kissing together, and like it's a really great way. Movie keeps cutting back to the game and then back to the past. Once again, like the whole tennis motif is all throughout the character dynamics and the storytelling, and like I think this movie would have been effective if it was just a straight narrative film. But I think the fact that uses nonlinear storytelling in such a strong way to keep you so engaged, and you never lose track of like what's going on, like you're never confused. And I think Luca does a really good job at keeping the audience focused, and it never feels like a gimmick what you're watching. Yeah, I definitely thought it was very effective how this movie did use nonlinear storytelling. And the last thing I really want to tackle is the last, I want to say, 10 minutes of this movie is one of my favorite endings of the 2020 so far. Like just the absolute how this movie, I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a callback this movie makes to a previous scene that is a genius callback. I was completely like, I did not see it coming. I can see some people see it coming, but like it's not a twist in any way. It's just something that happens in a previous scene, and it's referenced again, and it's referenced in such a perfect way. And then the final tennis, like the final 10 is set between Art and Patrick as it just keeps going back and forth, and the movie leaves you on such a perfect way. Like, the best way I can describe the ending of this movie, it feels like the ending of Whiplash, where just that final concert scene where Terrence is like finally coaching Andy, and like Andy is finally like in the perfect way, like realizing what Terrence wants. This movie just ends. The movie ends at 11 in the perfect way, where your emotions are just so high and so peaked at this moment that it just reminds you why you love the movies. Just with this like last 30 seconds, it's so perfect. And once again, the score is just blaring as you're watching this movie. But yeah, that just about brings me everything I want to say about Challengers. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, I'm going to go very high. I'm going to go 9.5 videotapes out of 10. Almost is 10 out of 10 videotapes. This is one of my favorite movies of the year. I love original stories like this that deal with complex characters, that deals with characters that don't want to admit their flaws, but even though they deeply know personally that they do have flaws. Directed super well by Luca. All three leads are phenomenal, and yeah, one of the best scores in years. As far as I'm concerned, with probably my favorite film score since Babylon. That is how much I love the music of this movie. Please go see this in theaters. I want more original movies like this. This is one of the best sports movies in about a decade, as far as I'm concerned. And if you see this movie in theaters, I don't think you will be disappointed at all. This gets the Cinemaster seal of approval 100%. Please go see Challengers. But yeah, drink some water. That brings us to our second review of the night. That is Boy Kills World, directed by Moritz Moore. This is a very this is a new action comedy that came out. I also don't believe it's based off anything, so it's really fun just reviewing two original movies. This movie centers on a character by the name of Boy. He's never given a name. He is mute and deaf. He is played by Bill Skarsgård. And we learn in this futuristic society that there is this event called the Culling, where a bunch of rich folk will kidnap poor folk, and they will dress up in costumes, and they will do a giant presentation where they essentially kill the poor people. But this boy was living in the forest, raised by a shaman, and he is being trained to essentially go and kill the leaders of this futuristic city, to end the culling and to stop these killings from happening, and to eventually bring order to the society. Yeah, really very simple setup for a movie. Like, not necessarily the world, but like the setup is very, very simple, where like you learn that the boy's parents and his family were killed in the past. We see flashbacks where he always had a really great relationship with his sister. And yeah, very simple setup. Like it seems like a revenge film, like really bare bones, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think I've talked many times on the show that a simple setup does not make a bad movie. It's what you do with that simple setup is that's what makes a movie good. And what Boy Kills World has that I think really helps it stand out. I think the world is so much fun and so zany. Like, I'm just gonna get out of the way. This is gonna be either a love it or hate it movie. I ended up really liking this movie. I think the style and the world this movie sets up, with it being in this future, with it having like this very like mean look on society, but also having this very like jokey and over the top feeling. Like, this is what I will say. I'm going to tell you a detail that is going to probably make or break the movie. Like I said, the titular boy cannot hear and he cannot talk. So throughout the movie, he obviously doesn't speak anything. But the majority of the film is narrated by I wrote down the guy's name, by H. John Benjamin, who is doing like this arcade announcer, like fighting game announcer voice. And that is the voice that kind of like guides us throughout the whole movie. So he's always talking like this. I was born in the forest and I've been training to go take out these people for years. If that seems like something that's going to bother you and get on your nerves, this movie probably isn't going to be for you. And I'll be honest, there were points with this narration where I thought, where I was a little mixed on it, where I thought it was really funny for like the first 5 minutes, but then points where I was trying to be emotional, I was like, is this working? Is this taking me out? But I think the world and how zany it is and how just alive the movie feels, like when we eventually see the culling, like it's sponsored by like a cereal company, and like you have like giant like a giant pineapple mascot, the people that are killing like dressed up as like pirates, and it feels so weird. And I really liked the style, and I really liked just the whole attitude of the film. I think it does a solid job of blending over the top action with its comedy. This movie is not afraid at being violent in any single way. Like characters are brutally murdered many points throughout this movie. Innocent characters at that. So if over the top action is something that's going to bother you, stay away from this movie, because this movie does not hold back. With the gore, with the blood, with the action in any way. But I think Moore shoots it in a really cool way that makes it very fun. And yeah, he always adds that like that sense of comedy, at least in the first 2 acts. Does a really good job at making it like even as like violent as over the top these scenes are, you never feel like super uncomfortable, because it does have like a level of cartoonish nature that you're okay with accepting how violent it does get. Whole cast is great, but I think the 2 standout actors are Jessica Roth as June 27. She's a character that's sort of like the silent like killer for the bad guys. She wears like this really cool like robot helmet. The design of her character is awesome. Like even if you're not going to see this movie, like just Google June 27 and just look at the design of this character. It's a really unique design. Yeah, I think she does a really great job. I was a big fan of her from the Happy Death Day movies, and I think she does a great job of bringing life to this character. And Charlton Copley is one of the side villains, Gideon Vanderkoy. He is the wife of the main villain. Charlton Copley just feels like born to play this kind of role. He's super he's just super like scum bum in a way where like you can clearly tell he's just in this for the money. Like he loves inflicting violence to all these people, and he brings a lot of humor to it. And Charlton Copley got a lot of laughs from me. And so Jessica Roth and Charlton Copley are definitely the 2 standouts of the cast for me. One of the major negatives I do think about this movie is I think, which I also think is one of its greatest strengths, but it does kind of cycle back to be a weakness of the film, and that is this movie starts immediately at like 1,000 miles per hour, does not let off the gas with how over the top and how violent it is. And while that's fun for like the first half of the movie, towards the second half of the movie, I was starting to lose a little bit of steam and was starting to get a little bit out of breath with how it just seems like, wow, we're not really going to take any moment to like breathe or slow down or like have any sort of like peaks and valleys with our action scene. Like it seemed like every single like major action set piece was trying to be like the big major action set piece. And I think when you have like 5 or 6 set pieces like this that are so big and are so bombastic, while you enjoy them at the time, it's a little difficult remembering like, okay, what happened in this scene, what happened in that scene, because everything just kind of blurs together. And I think More kind of struggled with getting those ebbs and valleys that makes great action movies great in a way. But I do think it was saved by the last, I want to say 30 minutes of this movie. Without spoiling anything, there was a big twist revealed about the main character that I think is super well done. I did not see it coming, and I think it just kind of changes your whole. It's one of those great twists where it changes your whole outlook on the movie and what the main character has been doing. That I think is super fun. And the final action scene is probably the most I want to say grittiest and most realistic in a way, and I think that's what makes it the most effective, and it definitely makes it the most emotional with seeing how far Boy has come in this journey and what he has to do to essentially finish the mission. I think is really unique, and yeah, I think this was a fairly well done action movie. If I were to give this score out of 0 to 10 videotapes, I think I'm gonna. I know this seems high, but this is a movie I really wanted, or I really want to champion and I really want to defend. I'm gonna go 8 videotapes out of 10. It has flaws. I'm not gonna pretend like it doesn't, but the good far outweighed the bad. I love the world this movie sets up. I love the characters. I love the colors. I love the action. Yes, do I think it probably could have had a little bit done a little bit better pacing itself? Yes, but I think overall, I think the sum of its parts, I think it's a really, really great movie, and I would highly recommend you go check it out. If you have time, please go see it in theaters. I admit this is not a movie for anyone by any means, but it was definitely a movie for me. And if you like fun action comedies, this is going to be one I think you're really going to vibe with. But yeah, that does bring us to the end of our show. Thank you so much for watching this week. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the video so it helps grow our channel a lot. Next week, we're starting the summer movie season. We are going to be reviewing The Fall Guy, directed by David Leitch, as well as A24's new movie, I Saw the TV Glow. Fairly excited for both of those. It's always fun when the summer movie season starts. Who knows how last year's writer's strike is going to affect it. Hopefully we still get good movies. But yeah, thank you all for watching. It's been a really fun show. And as always, watch more movies.
And the award for most vapid film review of the century goes to...
Okay, movie review. Okay, I thought it was beauty.
And he's now in cinema hell, where one day we'll all be reunited.
This is me at the Regal Cinema crying as I did through much of the film.